So good evening and welcome everybody to the Python Lab session number 3. And today we have two problems for you, and we'll be discussing those two problems. I'm going to give you the same, the rules are same. Basically, I'm going to describe the problems. I'm going to give you 30 to 35 minutes, something like that, to solve the problems. I think 15 minutes, 20 minutes per problem should be more than enough. And I'm going to describe the problems now. I'm going to share the coding link, or the files link, and then we get started. We have two problems today. The problem number one, first of all, let me share this link with you. I'm just going to do that right now. So you should be seeing on your Zoom chat a link coming up shortly. You can download those files. Now, we have two problems today. The problem number one is called firewall. Okay. And we have two files as well. Like one contains a list of IPs, the other contains some kind of a log. All right. So first problem is called firewall. The problem firewall is this, that basically in this program, let me actually open my Sublime editor. That might be better.
When I open that folder, it shows that it's empty for me. I don't know if anyone else is also experiencing that.
Same with me.
Yeah.
Is it showing empty for you? Really?
Yes.
The files weren't shared, I guess.
Yeah, it's just the folder that was shared. We don't see the files.
Let me share this again with you. Okay, can you check now? Can you click that now? I think the sharing should be on.
Same thing. It's there are no contents in that folder. It's empty.
Are you using the new link that I sent?
Yes.
Wow, I'm actually sharing it. Anyone with this link can view. Should be able to view that content. Let me try this from my other browser, maybe Safari, and see.
It's a permission issue because lab 2 we are able to.
So I just opened that from my other browser where I'm not signed in and I'm able to see the files. I'm not signed in here.
Okay, I think it's a time lag. It's a time lag, I guess. Now it is.
Okay. Okay. So everybody's good with the sharing right now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it put up. Thank you.
Okay. So let me open the first problem here. In this problem, you have to complete two functions. Essentially, we have a source, we have a code here, which is going to read a file which is called ips.txt, which contains a bunch of IP addresses. And your task is to block the IP addresses in which the third octet of the IP addresses is between 50 and 100. Okay. So you can read the whole problem, but that's essentially the essence of it. You have third octet of the IP address is between 50 to 100. So for example, here, this will be blocked because this is 52. This will not be blocked. So you have two functions here, and you can check how the functions are being called here. So first we create a file handle, and then we get all the list of IPs in basically through the read IPs function. Then for each IP, we are going to call firewall IP, and the firewall IP should return either a string blocked or pass for that particular IP. That's the problem number one. Straightforward, not very hard. So here you're reading the file. You have to give the path of the file here for yourself. Then this function will return a list of all the IPs. And then for each IP, we're going to iterate, and then we're going to call firewall function. That's, once again, repetition of the same old information. That's problem number one. Let me talk about the problem number two. Problem number 2 is also going to analyze some logs. Okay, let me open those logs. There you go. You have some logs here which have some IP addresses, a country name, and then a company name, and then locale, and then finally some continent. The log, I have formatted the log to look more or less similar. In this case, what you have to do is you have to analyze these logs. So read the problem and understand the code yourself. I'm going to explain the problem, what the problem is. Basically, you have a log file, and in this log file, the first thing is IP, there's some kind of a number, then you have an IP address, some kind of a, where did it go? Log.out. You have some kind of a number, then IP address, then the country, and then whatever. You have to build some kind of a stats where you store all the IP addresses that belong to one country. Okay. You have a dictionary, which is this stats dictionary. You have to construct this dictionary with this kind of setting, that the key is country and the IPs are the list of the IPs. The value is basically a list of all the IPs. And the second function is IPs, which takes in a country and it returns all the IPs for that country back. And if that country is not present in the dictionary, then it should return an empty list back. That's it. Those are the two problems. Any questions? Okay, you have the files. I'm going to pause the recording for now. I'm going to start the timer and then we can discuss. Just give me a second. Let me pause the recording. All right, so now let's talk about the solutions for this. So I see 3-4 people have submitted the problem number 1. And those are all correct solutions, done slightly in different ways, but all were good. So let's look at the 2 problems. Today I'm going to just solve the problems on Sublime and run the code on the terminal. So let me just pull this to somewhere else and bring this guy here. Let me start terminal. I'm going to go to CD downloads directory. Okay, so let's look at the problem. So we have 2 problems. The first problem is it's called firewall. So in this problem, basically you have to block an IP if that IP, the third octet, is between 50 to 100. That's the problem. So basically, essentially what I'm looking for you is to just parse the IP, get to the third octet, and just check that number, whether it is between 50 and 100, something like that. So just quickly work here. So you have a file, right? The file contains IP addresses. So let's say the first IP address is something like 162.172. Let's say 101.150. The second IP is something like, let's say 162.171.51. Something like 200 maybe. Just made up some fake IPs. So first thing is reading that, right? So you can read the file by creating a file iterator on this file. How do we create a file iterator? We basically, let's go step by step. How do we create a file iterator? So file iterator can be created by a built-in called open. And I'm going to put the file path here and then put the R to read the file. Okay, so let me get the path to this file. It's this path. My file is here. And it's called ips.txt. Yes, it's called ips.txt. And the file is such that it has one IP per line, like that. So it's basically one IP per line. So here's my strategy. I'm going to solve this problem incrementally. So my first problem challenge is, can I actually read this file? Is it possible for me to read this file? So let's do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this code, which is not really code, and put some kind of a random return here, which is not returning anything. And now I know that first line, I read this and create a file iterator. On the line number 2, I have this logic where I call the read IPs function with that file iterator here. So I'm going to go here and just write a loop to read the file. You can just do a f.read to read the entire file in one shot. You can do that. That's up to you. Or basically, you can just do for line in f kind of situation to do that. It really depends on how big your file is. If your file is really huge, then you should do this approach, because it's gonna read line by line, and the string buffer would always be small. Whereas if you do a f.read, it's gonna read the whole file in one shot and store it in a string. That might be easier for this problem, but if this file is really huge, then that command will take a toll on your machine. So for line in f, I'm going to do this way. Okay. And basically, suppose I'm going to create some kind of a list of IPs. Suppose this is the empty list. I begin with an empty list. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to iterate over each line in the file. So in my read IPs function, I have an empty list, and I'm going to iterate over each line. So first line is this IP comes here. And what I do is I just simply append it here. Then this IP comes and we append it after that in the list. So the logic is really simple, and just return that list back. So let's do that. What I'm going to do is, for each line in F, let's say ips.append the line. Let's just do that much. Okay. And I'm going to say print IPs. This will tell me with some confidence whether I'm able to read the file or I'm not able to read the file. And I'm just going to comment everything else for now, so that this code is not getting executed and it's not failing. So let's just run that much and see how are we faring. Firewall.py. Let me reduce the font a bit. Just give me a second. Let me fix this. Okay, so let's run this. And okay, there's a problem. What is the problem? For line in F, where is it? Line number 19. What do we have here? I may have to go through the Thorny route. Let me just manually fix all of this. Let's see if that helps. Yes, that is helping. So there you go. So you have basically a list of all these IPs that basically we want to return. So this is looking good to me so far. However, it has a /n as the last character. So I want to get rid of that /n as well. In this problem, for this problem, I may not need to, but I'm still going to do that. Right. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to say, for example, this is my line here. So this is the whole string, for example. So what I can just do is I can just get rid of the last character there. So I can get the last character just by doing a little bit of slicing and just saying -1 maybe, just that much. So if I just slice from the beginning and omit the last character, then this should give the answer. I'm going to run this again, and now you see the list is gone. So the /n is gone. So how this is working is basically each line you have an IP with a /n as well, because this is a file and this is a new line character. All of this is string. So let's just suppose this is my line variable, which contains this IP, which is 162.172.101.150 /n. And what I do is I just do line of slice till -1. So that -1 is not included. So this becomes my IP, real IP. So that way I can just get the IP out. You have other ways of solving this as well. I'm just going to go with this one. And in the end, just return this IP. Okay, so I'm just going to say return IPs. So now I've constructed the list of IPs and I'm returning it. So you can see essentially just 3 lines of code there to get the first function done. Now I'm going to run the other piece of code, just see what it does. Where is return? I did some kind of a mistake. Name error, this line 15. Where is line 15? Okay, this guy. Let's run this. Now you will notice that currently this function is running here at the bottom, and it is taking care of all the, having too much difficulty with my trackpad right now. Okay. So this function is running here. It's printing all the IPs and the firewall IPs. The firewall is just returning none. So that's why we have a return equals to none for every single IP. But we need to fix this logic here. So I'm going to start fixing this logic. Suppose you have this string. All right. Suppose you have a string and you want to check whether the third octet is between 50 to 100. First of all, what is an octet? So suppose this is the IP. 162.150.70.101. Suppose this is the IP. Essentially is a string at the moment, right? In IP, the octet are these, because these are all 8 bits. So essentially 32-bit IP. Okay. So how can I get the third octet first, right? If I just do s.split right now on dot, and I pass this IP, what will I get back is a list of octets, comma separated list. And this is the octet which I'm concerned about. I don't want to care about the other things. So I can just do a split on each one of them. I see the solutions. You guys have used regex with /d+. That's fine too. That's okay. But I'm just going to use this. Just doing a split. Nothing more is needed. So I'm going to go here and say IPs.split. Suppose this. And I'm going to store this in a list called octets equals to IPs.list. And what I'm concerned with, the real thing is the third octet. So I'm just going to say, let's say third octet equals to, let's say, int of octets of 2, right? So once again, going back here, this is index number 0, this is index number 1, 2, and 3. We obtain this octet and we convert it into an integer, because this is a string at the moment, and with string you cannot really do the comparisons. Actually, comparison will still work, but okay, whatever. So we come here, and then I'm going to check if, let's say, third octet is smaller than equals to 100, or I can write something like and third octet is greater than equals to 50. I can just compress this in Python with just one statement saying if the third octet is like that, then basically return pass, else return blocked. So you can do that much. I'm not doing a lot of error checking here, but you get the idea, basically what I'm trying to do. Now let's run this. What is happening? Sorry, my mistake. It's IP, not IPs. So there is no. Where am I missing? Where is this? List indexes out of range octets 2. Third octet equals to that. Where is this happening? So we have something which is probably not correct. Let's look at the list of the IPs first. Maybe there is an IP here which is not, sorry, written blocked. And let's look at, let's just see what IP comes here. There might be something which is problematic. Sorry, my mistake. Again, IP.split. I'm going to go back to Thonny after this. Let me fix the formatting problem. Yeah, that's what is happening. Okay. I have a mix of, since I transferred files from many places, I have a mix of tabs and spaces in between, which is really screwing up my program. So let's get rid of this. And finally this, bear with me. So let's look into this. What is this? This is the IP which is creating the problem. Int octets of 2 list index out of range. Why? Let's print the octets here and see. I can also debug. I'm just going to print the octets and see what the problem is. Meanwhile, if you guys spot the problem, let me know.
I guess inside split, you have to give the what you have to split.
Perfect. Thank you. So there's a basic error that I'm doing. I'm doing the split, which is splitting based on the space, and hence the list is just this. This is the list. Just one word. Hence there is no index 2. So now I'm here. I'm going to get rid of this guy. I'm going to get rid of this guy. And let's run this. Once again, this is a string. So now you see that the code is running and it's passing and blocked, pass and blocked at different IP ranges. Let's see if this is working. First of all, I have the condition inversed. So this is blocked and this is pass. So let's do that much. So let's see if we are good. It looks like we are good. The code is now working. It is basically blocking and unblocking the IPs based on the ranges that we have passed. Right. So it's not a very big piece of code, although I did a lot of typos here. And but yeah, you get the idea. Any questions here before we go to the second problem? Basically, the solutions that you guys proposed were also good. You guys just used regex. They are fine too. Up to you. Let's look at the second problem. The second problem is really basically a file that contains IP addresses.
So Himanshu, can you please paste this solution here in the chat?
So the solution will be available to you shortly on basically GitHub. So I'm going to just gonna post the solutions on a GitHub. I'm going to give you the link if that helps.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, don't worry. So the second problem, basically log.out. You have a log file type, and then you have a number, then an IP address, then a country, and then you move forward from there. Okay, what I'm going to do is, and you have to basically read this into some kind of this stats file, stats dictionary, and then basically return the IPs for a country. And if the country is not present, then basically return an empty list. So let's solve this problem. And this I'm going to solve on Thonny because I don't want to mix that tabbing. So let me fire up my IDE. Okay, there you go. That's the stats. And this, I'm just going to run this and it's going to throw an error, which is fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, first of all, let me give the file path fast. So once again, the file path for my log file is, copy from here. It's the same path that I used in the other file, but it's just called log.out. So once again, look, if you look at this code, all the code snippets are already ready. Right. So here you're reading the file. You have an open function, which is going to read this file in the reading mode. And then I'm going to call the analyze function. Analyze is supposed to build this stats dictionary. And then I'm going to print these stats. So let's assume that this is not doing anything, just putting a return here. Okay, let's run this code. So you get one second, a syntax error, which is because I have this here. Let me just put a return here as well. Let's run this again. And you have an empty dictionary, which is the stats. Right, so far you are here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to complete the code now. So first let's pay the attention on analyze, right? Analyze is supposed to have the file handle and it's supposed to populate the dictionary. So how does it work? So let's first of all see if we can read the lines, okay? Once again, I'm going to write the same loop, for line in F. Okay, and let's just say print line. Are we able to even read the lines? Let's see. If we run this, we get, okay, we are able to read the line. So we are good there, right? We have made one little progress towards the goal. Now, when I get the line, clearly, if I notice the log here, this is the log file. If I notice the log, then it has basically an IP address, a number, then space, then IP address, then space, then China, then space. And I'm only concerned with these three. I don't care about the rest. Okay, so let's try to get these into a list of some sort. If I do a line.split, okay, and I get, let's say words is a list, and I get line.split on default. Okay, and just let's say print words to see if this is doing anything to us. When you run this, we notice that, okay, the list is getting formed. Now the numbers are coming in the list. So the first is the number, then the IP, and then the country. At this point, the problem is actually reduced to a very simple problem where we just want to build a dictionary where key is country and the number is the IP address. So I'm going to go back and start building my dictionary. So the IP address really is, if we see, the first number is the number, second is the IP address. The IP address, the index is 1. Okay, so I'm going to say IP equals to words of 1. And let's say country equals to words of 1 and words of 2, right? Because if you notice our log from the previous, well, this is index 0, then this is index 1, and this is index 2. So we have this words.2. Now I'm going to populate the dictionary, okay? I'm going to check if the country is present in the dictionary or not. If this country is already present in the dictionary, okay, the key value pair, so this is the stats, which is some kind of a dictionary. And the key is country. And the value is the list of the IPs that are present here, right? And what I'm going to do, I'm going to iterate over all the lines and I'm going to obtain the country here. Then I'm going to check whether that country is already present. Suppose I come with USA. I'm going to check if the USA is already present here or not. If the answer is yes, or the answer is no, there are only two options. So initially the country will not be present. So as soon as I see that, okay, it's not present, I'm going to create a key called USA, and then I'm going to initialize it with a value, which is a list containing one single IP, the IP that I found in that particular line. If the answer is yes, that means the country has already been populated. Then the country would be already having a list of certain IPs. And I'm just going to append the new IP at the back here. That's essentially the overall complete logic that I'm going to follow. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to check. So if country in stats, then basically, let's say if country not in stats, if the country is not present in stats, then stats of country equals to a list of IP. So that one IP is added as a value, but it's a list, right? So that we can append later on. Else, that is, if the country is present, then essentially we just say stats country dot append IP. So stats of country, if I do this, if I look for this key in this dictionary, it will return a list back, a list object back. And we're going to say an append to that list object the new IP address. So that's what it will be. We're going to come back and let's just print stats and make sure that how we're doing. Okay, what I'll do is I'll say return stats here. Now, when I return these stats, it's going to print the stats on the next line. So let's see if we did anything good. Okay, it worked. And looks like it did something. So you have China with a list of IP addresses, Turkey with another list of IP addresses. So now we know that these IP addresses came from these countries. Once we have this list, once we have the stats populated, now the problem is actually really simple. All we have to do, let's just go back here, uncomment. So in the test cases, there are 4 countries: USA, China, Germany, and Australia. And I'm going to pass this to the function IPs and see if that works. So basically, if I was to say just like return, let's say if I was to say something like return stats of country, then there's going to be an error, right? You guys should be aware of this fact. There's going to be an error. Why is this error coming? Because I'm calling with a key which is not present in the dictionary. So I can do 2 things. I can write a if else statement, like if country in key, like something like this. If country in stats, then basically return stats of country. Else return an empty list. I can do that. That's one way of doing it. So let's run this code, see if this works. And looks like it is working. So USA, you see this is the list of all the IP addresses got returned. For Australia, there's an empty list because Australia was not there in the list. Now, that's the easy way to do it. You can also write the same statement in just one line, right? You can just do the get function. You can write return stats dot get country. So this will return the value for country. However, you can specify a value that if the country is not found, then return this instead. So that whole if else, you can just reduce to one statement saying stats.get this country, and if the country is not found, then return this default value of list, empty list. We run this code again, and basically it's working, but it's just like this, refreshing. So there you go, that's the answer. So now we have written a function which can return IPs belonging to a particular country that we analyzed from that log file. So that's the solution to the problem number 2. Any questions on both the solutions? Okay. if no questions, then I'm just going to tell you that this video is being recorded, and the video is going to be put out shortly after this session is done, and I'll share you the link. Apart from that, I am putting all the problems and solutions on a GitHub and GitHub repository, and I'm going to send you the link to this repository for all the solutions, and you should be able to see the written code here as well. Whatever I wrote in the class, you can just check that in the repository there. So those are the two things as a follow-up.